Now, before we get into this and you go all caps raging into the comment section, the criteria is important to consider. Of course, Seth Rollins is a better wrestler than No Way Jose, but No Way Jose is serviceable enough in his particular role. It isn't his job to, for example, convince spoiled professional wrestling fans that WWE is in fact the best pro wrestling on the planet, period, by, wrestling the best pro wrestling matches on the planet, period, and not about 9 curb stomps in the same bloody match. We are talking worst at their given role. With that in mind, I'm Adam Wilborn from What Culture, and these are the 10 worst WWE wrestlers of 2019. Number 10, Billie Kay. Right, no, I'm sorry, I'm not doing this. You can get Miller to do this one, because I like the Iconics. Do you mean he's too nice for this list? Fine. Billie Kay's problem is that she's as bad by accident as she is on purpose. There's no sense that she flails around the ring with bad on purpose timing to get this character over. She just can't wrestle particularly well, which kind of undermines everything, because as divisive as it is, there's a certain impressive art to the comedy match. She just takes forever to get her ass kicked, disengaging the crowd and disrupting the flow of her matches by bumping like an old tree in short sideshow attractions. Kay is a far better personality than she is a wrestler. Still though. Hi, Kayla! Number 9, Braun Strowman. 2019 was a disastrous year for the monster among men because, well, he couldn't have looked more helplessly mortal than this year. Strowman was removed from the Royal Rumble Universal title match because Vince McMahon felt he couldn't withstand yet another high-profile loss. And then he won no matches of any significance before losing to Seth Rollins at Clash of Champions. Cool. 2019 was also the year in which Strowman kind of deteriorated as a performer. The Strowman routine grew tiresome. He runs around the ring and shoves people over for the shine and then runs into a post like a bloody magnet to transition into the heat, and then kicks out of multiple finishers to get the monster act over. He isn't the explosive force he once was, in part because, well, WWE never did like the fuse. Strowman needs a layout and an opponent to excel, and received neither at Crown Jewel, at which he suffered the indignity of performing in a worse celebrity match than sodding Snooki. Number 8, Seth Rollins. You might think he's something of a dumbass on the basis of his social media activity. And you'd be right. But Seth Rollins knows that he is performing for an audience of one, and that audience demands controlled, limited performances as a body-preserving measure. Pal. The man who legitimately believes himself to be the best in the world was closer to Shane McMahon's nickname than Best Bout Machine in 2019, but it all started well enough. His performance in the Royal Rumble was fairly strong. His match-come-angle WrestleMania 35 moment, short but electric. His Money in the Bank banger with AJ Styles, a tremendous, believable clash. And then Baron Corbin happened. Their matches were boring, routine WWE main events before they were swamped in sports entertainment bullshit. And then The Fiend happened. Their matches were atrocities of form. Horror films in the squared circle that were as congruous to their respective genres as Michael Bay directing a sensitive mediation on the Bosnian Civil War. His match with The Fiend legitimately broke me this year. Speaking of which, number 7, The Fiend. The Fiend internally decapitated Finn Balor at SummerSlam, and it wasn't the finish, and thus made as much sense as a 2015 Bray Wyatt promo. But people overlooked it because The Fiend, for a time, was such glorious atonement for 2015 Bray Wyatt. Wyatt didn't do a great deal that 2015 Bray Wyatt didn't do. He just looked much cooler and wasn't tainted with the putrid stench of creative death. In his very next in-ring appearance, Wyatt devolved into a parody of the old supernatural character trope. He was impervious to pain, but because he endured so much of it, in accordance with the demand for such lengthy in-ring content, it looked patently ridiculous. He couldn't get the act over himself because he just did Bray Wyatt things without registering pain. And while Crown Jewel was an improvement, it was a WWE plunder brawl that meant nothing because it meant nothing to him. He feels nothing and could survive anything. Except WWE Creative. This vicious cycle is going to become unbearable next year. Number 6, Dolph Ziggler. The problem with reviving a serial mid-card rivalry as a main event program is that, it's a serial mid-card rivalry. Dolph Ziggler did have motivation to target Kofi Kingston in a parallel universe agonizingly close to his own. The show-off was a sentimental Mania headliner, and their shared history afforded Kofi a chance to prove he was no longer a mid-card act, provided he took it by entering a main event level performance. That didn't happen. After a mundane match at Super Showdown, an illogical and cheap excuse to promote a sequel even by WWE standards, the two men clashed in a steel cage at Stomping Grounds. Oh dear. Ziggler was a great mid-card act by the standards of his era, but with this bomb of a main event run, he saved us quite a few WWE totally wasted Dolph's potential R-squared circle threads. Yeah, that's right, squared circle. Please don't hurt me. Number 5, EC3. Oh, poor EC3. He never stood a chance. His first match with Ambrose was basic and boring, wasn't built, and fans didn't seem to know why they were meant to cheer for Derek Bateman over one of the few remaining connections they had with the product. The immediate sequel was demented because the alignments had suddenly changed. EC3 never stood a chance, and grimly aware of that fact, he botched his way through a main event GIF nightmare versus Tyler Breeze before running around backstage like a tit in pursuit of the 24/7 championship. A man visibly sick of his life actually became his gimmick at one point. Poor EC3. He's meant to be loaded. Number 4, Randy Orton. It is law to state that everything Randy Orton does makes sense, as if the psychology prescribed by WWE in 1984 is a classic text to study, but holy hell, it is profoundly boring. That match against AJ Styles drew only chants of "we can't see," as entire sections were blinded not by star power, but rather the punishing lights of WWE's obnoxious production setup. Orton shifted into a program with Kofi Kingston in a bid to revisit their 2009 rivalry. And Orton took the brief all too literally by reviving also the glacial, methodical pace of a bygone time. In 2019, Randy Orton was tasked with getting people over as a living legend character. And he couldn't see 2015 John Cena. Number 3, Shane McMahon. The only thing remotely heel 101 about Shane McMahon, fundamentally the worst push WWE superstar not named the Great Khali, is that's how many pathetic-looking rabbit punches he misses in any given match. And yet, when he manages to land one, those punches injure people. His impression of a hard man was more painful than hemorrhoids. And what's worse, the producers asked you to take it seriously at Super Showdown when he beat the brakes off Roman Reigns with nowhere near enough assistance. He looked like the pilot in Airplane within minutes of bouncing around like the jumped-up tosspot he is. And even as a heel, this was simply too annoying and believable. Watching a guaranteed awful match. Sounds great. Number 2. Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin was pretty good for a few weeks there. As the uncrowned king of the ring, Corbin substituted rest holds for skull crushing in lively, vicious performances removed from his dull work as an aspirational headliner. Corbin has no business headlining pay-per-views. He is a Vince McMahon fetish mandated to haunt the flagship forever with smug facials and toxic echoes of, well, you're supposed to hate him, spewed out by the remaining few that can bother themselves to patronize you from a wildly uninformed position about an industry that might just be dying because of turn-off bullshit like this endless push. Number 1, Lacey Evans. To quote Gene Snitsky, it's not her fault. To further the Snitsky theme, the way in which WWE approached Lacey Evans' push wasn't too dissimilar to his infamous meme moment of 2004. They plucked a performer in her infancy and punted her from the development womb of the Performance Center and onto the main roster. This bore disastrous results. At the Royal Rumble, Lacey Evans bumped several times while on offense in a rough-as-balls introduction to WWE life. Undeterred, WWE proceeded with her push in defiance of such obvious evidence because, well, simply, she's a leggy blonde with an admirable IRL background as a Marine. WWE sought to market this, of course, by depicting Lacey Evans as an early 20th century Southern belle. I haven't got a bloody clue. Well, with that in mind, I do declare this was bloody awful. And worse still, she wasn't just green, she was gangrene to the momentum and buzz of Becky Two Belts, who couldn't really do much with her. Lacey's body language hinted at a strong performer within, but her mat transitions were nasty. Her sense of positioning was at least in character. She ends the year as a far better performer, but that's what developmental's for, guys. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Let us know in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Plus, you can check out more recent videos here. Thanks for watching. I've been Adam from What Culture, and I'll see you soon.